world where we feel like there's so much things happening and we can't do that much and feeling kind of trapped in that way. I feel like neighborhood greening projects have given me a way to feel like there's a direct action approach to be kind of an agent of change. And just wanted to start with, some context of my neighborhood, the history, the challenges that exist here. And Sarah mentioned briefly kind of the groundwork of, environmental justice. I don't want to go in tangents off on some of that, but just, living in a community that's been historically underserved, there's definitely those things you can see that are written into the built environment that institutional racism has left us. So we've inherited these things. Also, just in doing projects, it's really important to understand the context and then to observe. I've appreciated having a permaculture background, and one of the key principles in design is always observing before you make any changes. And so for me, it's a way to really observe your physical systems, like the infrastructure, what's lacking, what do you have that's great, what are some of the things that are concerning, and then also observing the social systems that are around in our communities. Because again, when we talk about environmental activism and trying to make a change, we don't have to go blaze a new trail and try to do a lot of this work ourselves. And so there's a lot of great organizations and people doing a lot of the same work. So it's really, to be most effective, I think, to observe kind of the social ecosystem that we're inside of and how to align ourselves with some of those groups that we can partner with. And then lastly is, obviously to engage. It starts on a very direct local level, so just with your neighbors and community groups. And just kind of something I thought has been really fun through this, for me is really how many cool people I've met through different projects. And so it's always an opportunity to listen and kind of learn of the, the experience of other people in my neighborhood. And I've gotten to meet a lot of really cool people that are here. So just kind of moving along, Tacoma, this is a map of the different districts. And, in Tacoma, your zip code matters. There's different health disparities. There's a different life expectancy in different neighborhoods, and there's a lot of data and things behind all that, but really it is really a matter of health equity. And so when we look at the city of Tacoma or other cities around the country, there's a racist legacy that exists, and it's written into the built environment. And we look around, we can see it, we can feel it when we go to certain parts of the city. And those all have also a lot to uncover with that, but it's there. And so for me, going into how do we address a lot of these issues, I found it being really exciting when I learned about Grit City Trees, and it's this program that the city of Tacoma is doing, and now partnering also with Tacoma Tree Foundation. And really the idea is to support greening through civic engagement. And so there's a lot of support to expand the urban canopy in Tacoma. As most people are probably aware of, the tree canopy in Tacoma is lacking. And so they're trying to really empower citizens to be a part of that and beautify our neighborhoods and all these benefits. So it's a really cool program. The first time, this is where I met Sarah. It was really great. I found out about the program. They do a neighborhood application where you can get a whole bunch of neighbors to do it. And kind of going back to observing the built environment, an intersection right here near my house is, it's along a bike boulevard. It's a school walking route. There's no stop signs. So it's designed for pedestrians and bicyclists, but it's really lacking any of the traffic calming, infrastructure that we would want. And so this is where trees came in, is this really awesome solution, because I know all my neighbors, get frustrated with people speeding. And so this intersection here, all 4 neighbors, we were able to convince to get trees, and we ended up planting a total 4 on each property and 3 on another. So, and these trees are doing great now. But kind of on a side note, on the outreach spectrum, when we are engaging in communities, it's important to know, building trust and also trying to consider where their perspectives are. So for me, I found out that, a lot of times sustainability or environmental benefits aren't the primary issue that are on the front of people's minds that are dealing with, you know, food insecurity and housing insecurity and a lot of these other issues that impact neighborhoods like mine the most. And so when I started looking at the benefits of trees, it was really an opportunity to frame it to each individual in a way where, you know, yes, it's going to slow traffic and make our street safer. And, you know, one of the peoples were flipping their home. And so talked about how trees increased real estate value. And so that was like, you know, something that made them interested in it. And then another person, you know, they were too old to plant them, but they wanted them. And so we all volunteered to do it. And it was just a really cool experience. And just, you know, one of many cool projects that Grit City Trees is doing around the city. And so that was a really cool experience. And so this was a couple years ago, fun project. And then, you know, again, just kind of thinking of the context of my neighborhood, but, you know, the city and my community in general is, you know, really being impacted by the Interstate 5. And it's funny with the, you know, roads and freeways, we kind of like inherit them and we forget that there was something there before. And, you know, the freeway system has a very dark racist past and, you know, really systematically removing people of color in neighborhoods of low income and minorities to make way for the freeway. And so this is something that was done back in the 50s and is still with us today, impacting our neighborhoods. And so that's an important piece of kind of the next project that we were able to do a couple years ago was with Jenny Reed Elementary. You can see right here is a school located directly adjacent to the freeway. And so they have, you know, our most vulnerable populations are exposed to, you know, really bad air and noise pollution. And my neighborhood group meets here. And so that's how I first kind of tuned into what it is or the problem. And when you go to this campus, you know, you can look over and see the freeway and it's loud and it's really a stark contrast of what a school environment you would think it should be. So yeah, this idea and this project started with the PTA. And so again, it goes back to where it's kind of like listening to what other groups or other people and kind of coming together and how we can advance these shared goals together. Because the PTA was wanting trees for a really long time and they didn't know how to get it done and they didn't know who to talk to or the policy about it. And so it was kind of an alignment where we had a new principal come on board who was very supportive of it. We had some of the residents in our group that were also, you know, really in support of the project. And so we really went to the public school district and made a case of allowing us to plant trees around the property. And so there were concerns about, you know, safety if the kids would break branches and stuff. And a lot of these things that, you know, the conversations that happen in different agencies and stuff. So we were able to convince them that we would water them through the summer, take care of them. And so it was a cool project that really wouldn't have happened without this partnership between, you know, the city of Tacoma. This was also with the Pierce Conservation District, the PTA at Jenny Reed Elementary, and our neighborhood group. And so we were able to plant up, I think it was around 72 trees around the campus. And you can see this main wall right here are all these evergreen trees to try to break the noise and the sound pollution from that freeway impact. And so when this project was completed, it was a really neat thing because so many different people came out and it was awesome. And it was such a celebration for that to have like finally happened after so many years of the PTA talking about it. And then after the project was finished, I kind of like looked over the wall, you know, and I realized that WashDOT is doing this project. You know, we all know that construction here has been going on forever and it's like an ongoing joke. And so this 20-year project has been happening. And over time, they've been removing trees and widening the lanes and doing different stuff. And so when I looked at that and started wondering if they were going to plant trees, so I went ahead and contacted these are some of the aerial imagery that I came across when I started looking back to see what was there before. So in the beginning of the project, you can see up at the top left, that's in 2002. And down here, the school is right here. There was a buffer of trees that were along here. And so for me, it became clear that within this 20-year project, there were trees that were removed and they should be replaced. When I looked up further on the project footprint around over by Lincoln Park, which is next to another public school, you can see that this large area of trees right here was removed along the freeway, and that was never replanted. So I asked for a copy of the landscape plan from WashDOT. I called their office, and they were really responsive to talk about it. When I looked over the plan, really in summary, this is kind of the cover sheet of all the different pages that are involved. But essentially over the 20-year project timeline, these are all the area footprints that exist. And so areas that are in green are areas where there were replantings that were planned, and areas in red, there were no plantings planned. And so when I looked at this, I got really frustrated because, I live over here. And to me, when I see 3 public schools directly next to the freeway, and then I look up over on west side on the 16 and how beautiful the landscape is over there, and they're next to Foss High School and Bellarmine Prep, this to me just like, it hit me really hard that this is really, environmental racism perpetuating itself, right now today. And so it was really disturbing to me, and I felt like I needed to bring it up into someone's attention, and I wasn't quite sure like what channel to do that in. And so I ended up, I wrote my neighborhood council, I went to our neighborhood group, and then eventually went and talked to the Tacoma Sustainability Commission, and just was, telling people that Tacoma is getting, left out right now, and they're really getting taken advantage of by a state agency that talks about mitigation, and they have these lofty sustainability goals. And so, right here, when you look at some of the data, there's a lot of great data from the Washington State Department of Health. And so this, is just a layer of the ethnicity of Tacoma. And so you can see the disparity. It's very clear what the impacts of, environmental impacts around the city are still here with us today. And so when I look at WashDOT's roadside site development standard, they say right here, that their goals are to integrate their projects into the built environment in a way that promotes, livable communities. And so when I look back at this map, that's not happening. And so I guess I'll summarize it real briefly because I want to leave room for questions, but basically ended up reaching out to, State Representative Jake Fye, who's our 27th district representative. He also happens to be the House Chair Committee for Transportation, which oversees the budgeting for WashDOT. So this was like a really big alignment of support. And so I emailed him with a summary of all this information, and just calling out the issue, and he was really responsive and coordinated a meeting with the director of WashDOT, and we laid all this information out, and said that we expect our communities to be, those trees to be replanted. And it's been a process that we're still working on, that's about to be finalized, but it's been really great. They were, once they were presented with a lot of this, it's very clear. And so to me, it's an example, just really briefly, it's not always that environmental racism is intentional, and that it's directly being inflicted upon people, and that's there's really gaps in a lot of our systems and a lot of our processes that exist. A lot of government agencies are siloed and not sharing data and not communicating. And so these kind of gaps happen where There's a lot of information of how this plan came to be, but the important part of it is that they have revised the plan to include almost 300 additional trees that were removed from the plans. They're going to replant around all of the schools on I-5 and additional tree plantings around the neighborhood as well. So it feels like a really big win for our community, and kind of, again, the partnerships that exist and all of the collaboration that goes into making our city and our neighborhoods better. Well, I think what I've learned is that, you know, people all around are wanting, and some of the neighbors that I know and different people that reached out to me, and we're so grateful for, that we are making them, replant trees and stuff, is that we're all sharing this space and the impacts that are with us. And it's really a way, and especially in these times, it's really a way to kind of be reminded of our common ground, and that, the layers of community that exist. And I think for me, it's been great because it's, changing the narrative and empowering my neighbors to be heard that have felt these impacts for a long time. And so for me to see them now believe that it can, like that our neighborhood can be beautiful, and that we deserve, beautiful trees on the side of the freeway too, that that's been something that I've appreciated the most and learned from.